Join the millions of Australians that own crypto through Independent Reserve, Australia's most trusted crypto exchange. It's fast, easy and secure. Buy crypto today at independentreserve.com.
For a place in the World Cup. For us.
Welcome to This Is Your Sporting Life with Peter Donegan.
Thank you for your company on another edition of This Is Your Sporting Life. The Tobin Brothers Funeral celebrating lives, and we celebrate the life today of a fine Australian footballer. And you have to be a fine footballer to be an All-Australian. You have to be a fine footballer to be a best and fairest. And he also had what a lot of people regard as the poison chalice, the number one draft pick all those years ago. Jeff White is my special guest today. Jeff, good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
How's life these days? We catch you in a studio up in Queensland. Is that where you are these days?
Yeah, I moved up. I actually fell in love on the Gold Coast. Fell in love with the Gold Coast back in 2001. Come up here for a holiday and just fell in love with the place and came for holidays throughout my footy career, and then decided this is where I wanted to live. So moved up here with my wife and one-year-old son back then. It's funny how quickly time flies, but that was back in end of 2008. So yes, I've been here ever since and love it. So happily married with 3 boys. So it's great.
And your wife Stacey's a Gold Coast girl?
Yeah, we actually first of all we met. We were in Bali. And that was the first time we sort of met. But then, yeah, she was a flight attendant with Virgin, and sort of went from there. And we started dating in 2003, and then married in 2005. So, but she had travelled a lot. She lived in Japan and Hong Kong, and lived overseas. So very independent and travelling sort of lady she is, the same as what I am. But then we decided to reside up here. So it's been great.
Well, you can talk firsthand about the effect of AFL football on the Gold Coast. Do you think it's still got a place up there? Because the debate always rages on about, and it depends how the Gold Coast Suns are going at the time, I guess, but do you think that there's still enough interest to sustain the team on the Gold Coast?
I certainly think so. It's definitely a bit of a reflection of how they play. I was the ruck coach there for a few years, and you could see that, you know, when they were playing really well, that the crowd numbers were up, and when they were losing games, you know, there's so many opportunities for people to have entertainment on the Gold Coast. You know, you've got obviously the lifestyle, you've got the boating, you've got all the theme parks and things like that. So it's a bit of a challenge for the Gold Coast Suns, but I can certainly attest to firsthand just the grassroots there, the Auskick. The way they set it up in the Queensland area, southeast Queensland, is just you just can't fault it. I see it firsthand. That's where my kids go to school. I also see it firsthand with friends and family and things like that. And it's just a credit to the AFL about how they've been able to, you know, penetrate a rugby league / union market with the way they do the grassroots. And, you know, I see it time and time again. And now with AFL women, it's just a huge penetration into the market. There's, you know, even in my local footy club, and the girls that have signed up this year alone is just is unbelievable. And it's taken a lot of the junior development coaches and senior coaches by surprise on how it's just been so infectious. So it's huge. Look, a lot depends on the performance of the Gold Coast Suns. They had a great win on the weekend, but it's certainly the grassroots. They've got a massive imprint into the market already.
And I've got to say, having called a couple of games at Metricon Stadium, it's a really good football venue. It's very welcoming. It's a good experience when you go to the footy there.
It certainly is. I sort of relate a little bit to when Etihad Stadium first come on. You felt like you're on top of the ground. You could see the players very close, and it's very similar to that. A lot of people that have come up from Melbourne have really commented on the fact that the hospitality is great, but just the viewing opportunities, not only for kids but for the whole family in general, is positioned quite well. They have a little area at the back or both ends of the ground. They have areas for kids to have a kick, and I think that's, you know, apart from the MCG is the home of football. It's a absolutely world class stadium. There really is no way to go and have a kick with your mum or dad. Whereas that offers that opportunity there on the Gold Coast, where you basically walk 50 metres from your seat and you're on the grass having a kick. So I think that's a real carrot for a lot of the families, and in particular too, the way they position the times. A lot of twilight games, a lot of Saturday games. So because of the the lack of transport to the ground, it's all public access, public transport access. That allows families and the likes to attend the games.
And I guess there's a good sort of a buzz going on around the Gold Coast at the moment, because we're less than 12 months away from the Commonwealth Games, and everyone seems to have embraced it up there. I think it's going to be a great experience. If Melbourne in 2006 is anything to go by, and I know they're two vastly different cities, but I think there were a few who were a little doubtful about what was going to happen in Melbourne in 2006, and it was just fantastic. So if the Gold Coast can replicate that, you're in for something special.
Oh, certainly. I remember the Melbourne Commonwealth Games. The buzz around the city was unbelievable. It felt like the Olympic Games, to be honest.
Yeah.
It felt like it was, and that's what it feels like here. The infrastructure there's so much infrastructure going on, which is so beneficial for the local economy. The infrastructure that's going up in relations to the stadium. They've just completed that new stadium next to Metricon Stadium, which is the home of where the Gold Coast Suns are, and I just had a tour there last week, and that's world class. There's so many different things happening, but you're right. It's just a ripple effect. Gold Coast is such a hub for obviously the tourism in Australia, and it's just everyone's talking about it, everyone's excited about it, and it's definitely a huge positive, and everything's on track, everything's ahead of schedule in relation to all that sort of stuff. So it is certainly a big buzz around the place. And
just one last point, Jeff, about the Gold Coast and its association with our game, AFL football. Is it mainly expats, do you feel, who are interested, or are they actually converting people?
Well, a little bit of the both. There's a lot of retirees up here that have come from Melbourne. There's a lot of people that have moved from Melbourne that have come here for a holiday and stayed, like me.
Yeah.
So there's quite a balance, but certainly it's and it comes from the grassroots footy. It comes from the Auskick. It comes from the footy programs they have for the clinics that they run at schools, even at junior footy club level. And I went to the game on Saturday night, and just the amount of kids that were there with their parents, it's growing in stature, and it's becoming a huge part of it. And I think they had 14,000 there on Saturday night, which is it's a positive. Things are on the up. A lot of it, like I said, relates to performance. But if they can be competitive, they can win some games like against the big clubs like Geelong. It's only just going to increase the awareness and get people going to the game. But certainly there's a lot of interest in kids playing AFL on the Gold Coast.
What's your involvement in footy these days?
So when I first moved up, Bluey McKenna was the coach then, and said, look, we've got, in his words, we've got 16 ruckmen at the club, and they did. They had a lot of ruckmen. So I was ruck coach for under 18s and reserves and 2 years the AFL. But I just... look, if I ever wanted to be involved in footy, I think I would have stayed in Melbourne. I was never entrenched in footy. I love playing, but I was never really a person who sort of analysed or watched too many games. So it was good to be involved with the junior players and to help them. And look, it created great relationships that I still have to this day. But I do some radio now after that with ABC Grandstand. So it's been great fun. I don't know if I should mention that.
No, that's fine.
But it's great. It just gets me involved in the game in some aspect. I still go to the games, which is great fun. So it's been I've been doing that now for about 4 years.
No, you can mention that as much as you like, mate, because we're paying your wages. We're paying our 8 cents a day, so you're our employees.
Well, that's good. That's nice to know. But no, it's great. I quite enjoy it, because when I sit at home and watch the footy, I sort of go quiet. No one can really talk to me, so it's a good chance to open up and speak my mind about how the game is progressing in those types of aspects.
And what about business-wise these days? What are you up to?
So when I moved up, I where I'm at right now, the Hot Tomato radio station. So I was the sales manager here, and I just quite like that marketing side of things. I quite like being involved with businesses. But the first week I started I started Twitter, and it just got involved in the social media space in relation to Twitter, Facebook, and things like that, and realised that there are not a lot of companies in Australia were taking advantage of this communication they had with customers, the direct communication. So I started a social media company in 2010 called White Echo, which I still do to this day. So been great fun. But over the last couple of years, I've been entrenched in it's called Post High, so retractable goalposts for kids.
Okay.
I started the idea in April 2005. We just launched the product in December, so we got the AFL goalpost that we launched, and been entrenched in that. Really love the project. It's been really rewarding. I've always enjoyed being associated with kids, and this is one product that the kids love. But on a junior level, I know when I was growing up, I used trees, I used bins, I used my mum's pot plants and stuff like that. I didn't actually have my own goalpost, so decided to venture out and try and achieve something that I think is a really exciting product. It glows in the dark. Kids love that fact. So it's been an exciting journey, and we're just trying to push that as much as we can at the moment.
It's a terrific idea, because I remember back many, many, many years ago now, and my brother and I used to have a kick in Albert Park, was where we grew up, and we had one tree and a power pole that was not far away from the tree. It was only probably a metre or two between the two of them, so it promoted accurate kicking, yes. Well, at least that's what I like to tell myself.
Yeah. Well, it just basically come about. We were on a family holiday, and my son's he loves AFL up here, and he just said I want to go to the sports store and buy some goalposts, and it sort of dawned on me that there was nothing available. They use the javelin poles at the junior clinics, which is very debatable. So I just wanted to try and solve a problem for him, but then soon realised that there was nothing out in the market, and a lot of people were obviously interested in what I was developing. So it went from there, and then in August 2015, I mentioned it to a little one, Gary Ablett, and he was very interested in the product, and a couple of months later he decided to come on board as a partner. So it's just him and I, and we're working really hard to try and get the product out in the market as best we can.
All right, that's enough of the free commercials. We're going to take a commercial break ourselves. We have to pay for things too, and so we will take a break, and we'll be back to talk more with Jeff White on the other side of the break on This Is Your Sporting Life for Tobin Brothers Funerals, celebrating lives every day of the year.
You're listening to This Is Your Sporting Life with Peter Donegan.
Wonderful to have your company for another edition of This Is Your Sporting Life for Tobin Brothers Funerals, celebrating lives. Jeff White is my guest. Jeff, take us back to where it all began. Frankston YCW in the early days of your football. Who was the first one to identify that you had that great athletic talent and that wonderful build to become an elite footballer?
Luke Beveridge's dad. Ironically enough, John Beveridge was leading scout down at St Kilda Footy Club, and back in those days, that was a zoning area for us. I remember as a probably 12-year-old, year 7 around there, I went down to I went to John Bull College, and there was a senior school and there was the junior school, and I remember the footy oval was in the middle. So that was the middle area. That was almost like senior kids were up that goals and the junior kids were down at these goals. And there was one, Robert Harvey, that was in year 12, and he was in the middle of the ground, and I just went and had a kick with him and just really I was in awe of Robert Harvey, but I was in awe of the fact that I wanted to play AFL, and that's where this sort of passion started for me. And I'm very keen basketball. I played state basketball, loved basketball, but I don't know. I just love the element of the contact, but I just love it might sound funny, but I just love jumping on guys' heads because I had a big spring. I love the fact of jumping into guys at the centre bounce as a ruckman, but I also love taking the big marks, and so that was really a strong passion for me. And then when I was 15. Studies were becoming very demanding at school. My basketball was getting to the level where it was very demanding, training nearly every day, and then also with footy, with the Dandenong. I was Southern Stingrays back then, which is the Dandenong Stingrays, and my dad sat me down and said, "Look, you need to make a decision on where you want to go." And I remember I played on a Sunday, and I didn't play that well. It was really a poor game, and we're driving. Every Sunday I played footy, but then after that I had basketball that night, and we're driving to the basketball, and my dad said, "Did you know that there was a couple of AFL scouts watching you today?" And I was so upset the fact that I wasn't able to showcase my skills, that I went out and shot, I think it was 25, 30 points in basketball. And I was just so angry at the fact that I hadn't impressed these scouts. And that's what I basically just then and then said, I've got to stop basketball, I've got to focus on footy. And so John Beveridge was the one. He was, he just was always talking to my dad, and he would come to the games, and just developed a really good relationship with him. But because I was born in 1977, I was out of the zoning area. So, that's where it become the draft and all that sort of stuff, and that's how it sort of evolved from there.
Well, the time to impress came a little bit later, because I think you were actually part of the very first draft combine.
Yeah, we were. And ironically enough, I'd actually signed with Fremantle beforehand. I'm not too sure whether that was legal back then or what the process was, but I'd already sort of committed to them. Cameron Swab was the recruiting officer for Fremantle, and they just come and said, "Look, we've got number 1 draft pick. We want to take you." And I just wanted to play AFL. It didn't matter where it was. I just wanted to play. So I roomed at the combine in 1994. I roomed with Jason Ackermanis, and as I look at it now, he was already assigned to Brisbane, and I was assigned to Fremantle. So him and I, when it come to interviewing process with all the other clubs, it was just him and I. No one else. There was no other clubs. It was pretty much everyone sort of got a bit of understanding of what was happening. So, but it was great, and it's great to see how that's evolved. I look at the NBA draft combine, NFL, and now where the AFL's gone, it's state of the art. It's world class, and kids just have such a wonderful opportunity to showcase their skills. You're showcasing your skills to get drafted, and the way the AFL have done it, and how it's evolved in over the 20 years is outstanding. Was
Acker a different unit even back then, Jeff, or did that come later in his life?
Oh, he was a character. He was a character. I remember him and Shannon Grant got together, and it was it was pretty messy, very funny. A lot of pranks and things like that. So yeah, it was almost like, because Shannon Grant and myself, we grew up. We didn't play in the same sides. We played a lot of state footy together, and yeah, I remember Shannon coming over to our room and just wreaking havoc and playing pranks on everyone else. So it was great. Yeah, but Acker, what an outstanding career. And you look at that '94 draft, and I look back now, and Matty Lloyd and Anthony Rocker and Shannon Grant and Daniel Harford, Jason Ackermanis, there was Jeff Farmer, there was Adam Uze, Scott Lucas. There was a lot of good players there that come out of that '94 draft.
And many of those names still involved in football at one level or another. I mentioned in the intro, Jeff, number 1 draft pick can be a poison chalice. You only have to ask someone like Jack Watts about that because of the pressure that's been put on that poor young fella over the years.
Yep.
Did you see it that way, or did you just not regard it as being the number 1 draft pick? Did you regard it as being something else?
I regard it as being the number 1 pick for Freo. I didn't regard it as being the number 1 pick for all the other clubs. I didn't put that added pressure on myself. I think one of the things I took into being drafted and walking into an AFL club for the first time was, I want to earn the respect of these players, and that came from Gary Lyon. We had under 15s, our state side. We had a Gary Lyon, current player at the Demons at the time. He was our guest speaker, and one of the things he said, and I still remember it obviously to this day as a 15-year-old, he said, you got to earn the respect of your players, and that's what I took into the first day I walked in, from the first day to the last day with Melbourne Footy Club, is to earn the respect of the players that you play with, and that's the attitude I took. It was something I'll never forget, and when I just focused on doing that, that came down to making sure you had the right diet, your off-field things were great, you looked after your recovery, even on the training track you tried to train as hard as you could, you did all the extra sort of stuff, and that's how you earned the respect of the players, and that's the motto I took throughout my whole career.
We've seen a bit of the Western Oval, or the Whitten Oval as it is now with the women's game, but it probably holds a special place for you because that was game number 1 for you. Round 3, 1995. Do you remember your first kick in footy?
Yeah, our first kick was a goal.
Yeah.
So Rowan Wolf, I think I tackled. I'm not 100% sure on that, but come down the goal square, tackled him, got hold on the ball, and it was actually all my friends, all my relatives, everyone that came to the game, they went to one end. They didn't know which end we were obviously going to kick to because of the toss of the coin. And ironically, it was right in the goal square where they all were. So when I was lining up for goal, I was quite nervous. I was right in the goal square. So, going through your mind, I can't miss this. But I just remember seeing all my friends, and I said, right, this is like it was, a year ago when I was just kicking with my mates, and I just lined up one of my mates and I kicked it straight to him. So it was actually a special moment. We played Fitzroy, Fitzroy at Whitten Oval, and something I'll never forget. And to, of course, play in Melbourne, play your first game in front of all your friends and family who have supported you throughout the years leading up to that moment. It was a special occasion.
3 seasons across the other side of the country. How would you mark your time at Fremantle? What sort of experience was it overall?
It was definitely a learning experience. It was a development stage. I found that when I played with East Perth, who was my sister club, and I really enjoyed my time at East Perth. I enjoyed my time at Freo, but I felt that I had a really good connection with East Perth because there's a lot of Victorians there, and that's I was able to sort of relax and play footy. I think the nerves got the better of me when I played with Fremantle. I'll play a few good games here and there, and then I'll be really inconsistent, go back to East Perth, play really, really well, get promoted back up to so it was a bit of a up and down sort of 3 years, but I loved my time in Perth. I had some family over there who I live with, developed some great friendships who are still mates to this day, and but when it came to the crunch, I just felt that there was just too many ruckmen at the club. That my place was, I didn't feel like I was a need there. I just felt that something was pulling me back to Melbourne, and it wasn't family. It was just the fact that I wanted to play in front of big crowds. I know Freo play in big crowds these days, which is great. It shows the development of how far they've developed and where they've come, and which I love watching Freo. Still got a soft spot for Freo, but I just wanted to play in Melbourne, and that's what drew me back there. So, look, I had a few injuries when I was in Perth, so that sort of didn't help it at all. And but look, it was a great experience, and I treasure every moment because that was the soundboard for me playing with Melbourne, because I think I missed 5 games in Melbourne in 11 years, and I just really cherish the time I had at Freo.
We'll take a break and then we'll expand on that time in Melbourne. And speaking of injuries, we'll touch on one particular injury, which was one of the most publicised injuries in football at the time. Quite horrendous. We'll talk some more about that with Jeff White when we come back on the other side of the break. On This Is Your Sporting Life for Tobin Brothers Funeral, serving families across Victoria for more than 80 years. Back with Jeff after the break.
You're listening to This Is Your Sporting Life with Peter Donegan.
Jeff White is my special guest on This Is Your Sporting Life for Tobin Brothers Funerals, celebrating lives. Jeff, as a Melbourne boy, was it always in the back of your mind that you were going to come back to Melbourne, or was it that fact that you talked about, that they had too many ruckmen, that really was the major influence in your decision?
Well, at the start of '97, I was very happy. I was happy where I was, and I was contemplating re-signing. But I don't know. It just a lot of things unfolded during that last year. I got injured. I actually, unfortunately, had a lacerated spleen in one of the early games we played against Essendon. So my focus then switched to trying to look after my health and all that sort of stuff. And then just things sort of evolved from there. And look, it wasn't until the end of the year I really made the decision that I wanted to return home and play with the Melbourne club. There was a lot of clubs that were interested in my services, so I took some time away. I went over to America with a couple of my mates and just had time to think about where I wanted to play where my future lied with the footy club. And one of the guys that went over with me actually was a current Fremantle player, and then I had a junior mate, and we just had some really honest discussions about where it sort of sits, and a lot of the pros sort of went in the favour of going back to Melbourne. So I made the decision when I got back, and just went from there, and then it was just all, spoke to a number of clubs. At the end, it come down to Collingwood and Collingwood and Melbourne, and something was just drawing me close to Melbourne, and then Neil Danaher was the assistant coach at Freo during my time there, and he got the head coaching role, and put 2 and 2 together and made a pretty easy decision for me.
And then, ironically, you front up for Melbourne alongside Jim Steins, and I'll talk about Jimmy in a moment, but your first game was against who?
Freo.
Yeah,
I think.
What about that?
I think that was sort of organised in some way, I reckon. But look, I played Freo over there, and the boos were pretty. The boos throughout my whole career were pretty loud, but I only had 4 possessions that game, so it was a bit of a shocker for me. I still remember that, but it was great to return to Perth and play, and then from there, I think I had some pretty good matchups against Freo over the time where I was playing it with Melbourne, so made it up at some point.
Oh, yeah, I think you did. Yeah, I think we could safely say that. I mentioned Jimmy Steins. He was there when you got there. What sort of an influence was he on you?
Yeah, he was huge. It was quite fascinating that when I grew up, I won the Brownlow in 91, and 91, 92 is when I was, starting to take the role on of being serious about AFL. And my biggest idol growing up was Michael Jordan. So I looked at the way he went about his sport, his outside of sort of stuff. But when I needed to refocus and have someone to follow in football, there was always Robert Harvey there, but I needed to follow ruckman because that was and I was very mobile, and I just loved the way Jimmy Steins played. So going to Melbourne and having him as my rucking partner, as a mentor, as a role model, was I was blown away, and I just really loved playing with Jimmy. We played 98, and then it was a few injuries that he sustained through 99, and then he was my ruck coach in 2000, and he just has a massive awe. He had a massive awe about him whenever he went. But his knowledge of the game, particularly, he didn't grow up with AFL. It was quite fascinating to understand his whole knowledge of the game was mind-blowing. And I'll never forget the prelim we played 2000. Oh, no, sorry. It was the first final we played against Carlton in 2000. It's a great comeback for the D's. And I remember the first quarter, the ruckman for the Porter, I think it was, for Carlton, and I think he took 6 or 7 marks on me in the first quarter, and I'll never forget this. And we got to quarter time, and Jimmy just said, "It's not a sprint, Whitey. It's a marathon." And that's all he said. He just simply said he's got he's had a good quarter, but this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that just put me at ease. It just put me at ease. I just knew that I just had to chip away. I had to try and get the ascendancy back in the game, and ended up playing okay, and we ended up winning the game. It was part of a historic win. So he just knew what to say. He knew how to coach people, and that's why he was so influential with his Reach Foundation. He just knew how to get the best out of people. He knew how to inspire people, and just a legend. And not only on the field but off the field, he was just an incredible person.
And in that year you spoke about, Jeff, 2000, you go all the way to the big dance. Does it still stick in your gut what happened that day?
Certainly does. It certainly does. Yeah, there was things that you want to achieve, throughout your footy career, and that's certainly one of them. We hadn't won a premiership since '56, I think it was. A lot of players had gone before us.
1964.
There you go. And there's a lot of players that have played before us that had tried and never, and that was our motivation. That let's be the first guys since '64. They obviously had a great era through the '50s, and we just wanted to get a hold of that cup. But Essendon was just too good on the day. But just the lead up, the week, you've got everything that comes about. The grand final week is just something that I'll never forget my lifetime, and I'll never forget I was actually living with David Neitz and Jeff Farmer, and we decided I think it was a Tuesday night, we decided to go down to, we're living in Brighton at the time. We went down to the main street there, and we just went to a quiet little area, quiet restaurant. We were sitting there, just the three of us, just having a chat, and a bottle of wine came over on our table, and we like, hang on a minute, we haven't ordered a bottle of wine. And we look over, and it was Sam Newman with a couple of his mates that had passed on a bottle of wine to us, and we just everything, everywhere we went, there was, even though it was Sam Newman, but everywhere we went that week, it was, people were just, it was a big week, and yeah, unfortunately, they were just too good. Great side, Essendon. We threw everything at them, but wasn't to be.
So from a team sense, you almost had the perfect year, just falling at the final hurdle. But from a personal sense, was 2004 your best ever year because you got all the accolades, All-Australian, club best and fairest, finished top 10 in the Brownlow. It was some sort of year for you.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the years is certainly a highlight. I love 2000. I thought we had our backs against the wall in the middle of the year. We lost back-to-back games by nearly 100 points, and then we had to go over to and that was actually that might have been 98. I'm just trying to but I think 98 and 2000 98 was good because I'd sort of come off of, there's a lot of speculation about the move, and I thought my year was quite steady that year, and it was great to play with Jim, and I learned a lot from him. But certainly 2004 was as an individual standpoint was a great year. But it was just great playing finals. You look at been out of the game now for a little while, and you see the finals every year. It's just great. It's just what a wonderful time it is during the year, and every week is great. But final is just something special, and that you've been involved in footy for a long time. A lot of people that are listening have been involved, and it just to be in that inner sanctum of playing finals footy is something else.
Let's turn the clock forward 1 year, 2005. What do you think of when I say the name Stephen King?
It's a big hit.
Yeah, it was a big hit. And for those people who don't remember, just tell us what happened.
So it was an elimination final, playing Geelong at the MCG, and I guess the game started. It was just a fast-paced game. It had everything. Geelong was sort of getting the upper hand on us, and I can't remember. I think it might have been the third quarter that it happened. But the first half was a bit of an arm wrestle, and I played Stephen King as a junior, and then throughout our AFL careers, we had some really good battles together, and we just, and I was the only ruckman for that game, and I think he was too. You might have had Cam Mooney, or might have been, I'm not 100, but it might have been Cam Mooney was maybe chopping out a little bit, but it was just him and I, head to head, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we were just, so there was a boundary throw in on the members' wing, and the ball came in, and we're tussling, and the ball actually hit the ground and bounced up. Perfect height. It bounced up like an umpire should. They train to, but bounced up perfect. And Stephen King was on my right, and I've got some really good. Throughout my career, I had some really good lateral awareness. I could see things happening. I was aware of people around me, but at this particular moment, I just basically leant towards the ball, and his leg came from the right and just totally blindsided me and hit me right in the upper lip. And I remember laying there, and I didn't black out. I wasn't knocked out. And just remember thinking, I just couldn't believe what it was. I had no idea how I'd ended up where I was. And so I sort of got up. The doctor was there, and I could see the pool of blood in my hands. And I don't want to turn the listeners off here at any stage, but it was a big hit. But I was my plastic surgeon there with my shin. He was there. I was in surgery within 3 hours. They did an incredible job at Cabrini, and were able to stitch me up fine. But I guess one of the lessons for anyone playing footy, if I didn't have my mouth guard in, I would have lost all my front teeth. My teeth were stuck there, and they still say to this day that if I didn't have my mouth guard in, I would have lost them all. That's how big the hit was. So all these kids there, wear your mouth guard.
Yeah. 5 metal plates, 14 screws, I think, Jeff. Are they out now, or is any still in there?
No, they're still in there. And I just had a checkup. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, and just a general checkup, and they were taking a X-ray of my head, and I said to the guy that you're going to find something quite fascinating in those X-rays, and I remember hearing his voice, him just gasping for air, going, what is that? So I obviously had to replay the story for him, but yeah, they're still all in there, and I was actually getting married 8 weeks or 6 weeks later, so it was a touch and go moment. We already had it obviously all booked, all the guests, all the date, everything was set, but the surgeons did a fantastic job, and I had a beard for a little while, and it was very numb, but I haven't had any touch wood, it's been okay since then. So, but look, you take positives out of negatives. The positives was I had my mouth guard in, and it didn't hit me anywhere else, because it could have been a totally different story.
How do you go with the metal detectors at the airport?
Yeah, I actually tested that when I first went up. So it didn't, nothing, no alarm bells there, but security's getting tighter and tighter, so you never know what can happen.
All right, Jeff, we'll take our final break and we'll come back and find out how the career eventually came to an end, such a decorated career. More with Jeff White on the other side of the break. This is your Sporting Life for Tobin Brothers Funerals, 23 chapels across Victoria. You can find out more online at tobinbrothers.com.au.
You're listening to This Is Your Sporting Life with Peter Donegan.
Our final segment with Jeff White on This Is Your Sporting Life for Tobin Brothers Funerals, celebrating lives. Jeff, we spoke about some of the good times and some of the hard times with that terrible injury. How did it all come to an end at Melbourne for you?
Oh, look, 2006 was another finals year for the Demons. We just fell over the line with Fremantle over there in Perth, and yeah, look, we 2007 and 2008 were challenging years. We thought we had decided to try and make finals, but it wasn't the case, and we started off 2007 pretty poorly, and then Neil decided to walk away from the coaching job, so it become very challenging. And I think at that stage is where the club thought about the rebuilding phase, and a lot of great players that I played with, Adam Uze, Jeff Farmer wasn't there but left earlier, and then there was David Neitz, there was Russell Robinson, there was a lot of players that we'd played finals footy together, and look, it's the way it goes. Footy clubs at some point need to look at rebuilding and getting draft picks and all that sort of stuff, and that was when your time's there. But I think, from my perspective, starting 2008, not that I thought, I sort of was confident that I'll keep going probably another 1 or 2 years, but by the end of that year, I always said to myself, when I stop enjoying the game is when I walk away from the game, and that's what happened. I just sort of fell out of love of, I used to I had my own personal trainer, I used to love training extra times outside of footy, and I did everything I could to prepare myself to play week in, week out with, the shins and all the different injuries that I had. And yeah, look, it was simply, I just said to my wife, look, I've fallen out of love for the game, and I don't want to be in a position where I just one of the guys on the list. I don't want to give up an opportunity for someone else to, or even Melbourne Footy Club, to develop another ruckman. So that's where it ended up, and I was very at ease with my decision, and then went from there. So I'd never, I was very grateful for the opportunity, grateful for both Fremantle and Melbourne for the wonderful opportunity, and the players that I played with, the coaching staffs, the development coaches. The list goes on and on about the people that were involved in the whole process of that 14 years. It's just, and your immediate family, of course, but, people that were in your life during that time.
Last week, the legendary Boomer Harvey was my guest on the program, and he spoke very fondly about the fact that he's now playing with his brother, and he said he's enjoying it so much. That was something that you got the opportunity of doing after you left the AFL. That must have been a refreshing change to be able to have a kick with Redlands and not have the pressure that goes along with AFL football.
Certainly. It was I felt like 2008 just left, it was a very sour taste in my mouth, because I loved the game so much. I loved it as a kid, loved playing it, and I just didn't want to feel like I leave playing like that. So when the opportunity came about to play with my brother, I just took it with open arms and said, look, I'll play 1 year, I'd love to play with you. And and moved up to, I was still living on the Gold Coast, which Redland's not too far north, and it was great to be involved with the club that it sort of struggled. 5 previous years, I don't think they won hardly any games, and we ended up finishing 3rd that year. But it was great to be involved. I wish my other brother could have played, but he had a terrible leg injury, so he couldn't play that year. But it was great to play with Ricky, and ironically, he was injured throughout the whole year as well. So he was trying to get back. He would come through the reserves, and we played the last game together, which was great. So I was able to at least play with him, and then my dad was able to see me play because he'd sort of moved to Brisbane and hadn't seen a lot of my games live since moving to Brisbane in 2004. So it was great for the family. It was great to finish off like that. It was also great to, I guess, give a little bit to the club that had struggled for so long, to give them a taste of finals and inject some great junior kids coming through. So it was a great time.
And just finally, when you retired, I think you joked that you might even go on the Seniors Tour or the Champions Tour in golf. Are you still chasing the little white ball around? How's that going?
Yeah, look, I got down to 2 or 1 at one stage, and I love my golf, but no, family came first. It was, I really treasured my time with the kids. We just had Kalani back then, and then the twins were born. Identical twin boys were born in January 2011. So I just really treasured that time with them, and I'm still hitting the golf ball these days. I'm playing off 5, so it's still there, still a reasonable handicap. But look, I love my time with the family, and even though I sort of have a little bit of involvement with calling the footy games, I just love spending time on the weekend with my kids, and that's sometimes when you go play golf, it takes up a bit of the time. So, but my son Kalani, who's 10, just turned 10 on Friday. He loves golf, so it's good to go out and hit the ball with him.
Oh, well, you'll be able to spend some quality time with your son on golf courses for many years to come. And we've enjoyed spending time with you over the last hour or so, Jeff. It was a wonderful career with that All-Australian award. The best and fairest award, and if only we could say you're a premiership player, I reckon you'd probably just about say that you'd done it all in the game.
Oh, thank you. I thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. It's great to have a chat, and I just, can't thank Melbourne and Fremantle enough for the opportunity they gave me to play AFL.
Good luck with the business, and thanks for your time.
No, thank you. Thanks a lot, mate.
Jeff White joining us as a special guest on This Is Your Sporting Life for Tobin Brothers Funeral, celebrating lives, and we will celebrate the life of another great Australian sportsperson next week, same time, right here on 1116 SEN, Melbourne's home of sport.